Hello and welcome to World Beauty's Red Lips Real Talk chat discussions. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Katie Keith, who's an executive coach and mentor to global leaders and businesses. Today, we're going to be talking about an exciting topic, neuroplasticity and mindset, and how that connects to red lips and world moments. Welcome, Katie Keith. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for everyone out there?
Hi, Alex. It's so delightful to be here today with you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really passionate about working with individuals and businesses right around the globe. And one of the hot topics right now is, how does our brain function? And I think neuroscience does play a role in how we interact with our coaching practice. So for me, I'm excited to be here today to talk a bit more about that. I do work with quite a few people around the globe, and even though we're talking about hot topics all the time, there is some underlying change that they want to occur. And I think that that's where the plasticity comes in, and how do we create that?
Okay, that sounds great. So neuroplasticity, it's a mouthful. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
It sure is. And look, I'm definitely not a neuroscientist by any means of the stretch, but I have studied the impacts of how neuroscience plays a role in my coaching practice and how I work with people. It's helped me to create awareness. And for those listening today, neuroplasticity is the ability for the brain to adapt to changes in our everyday environment. So it's forming new neural connections over time. And so basically, plasticity is ongoing throughout life, and it involves the brain cells, and it can occur as a result of learning, experience, memory formation, and also if you had damage of the brain as well. So we're looking at recreating those receptors so that we can either learn to walk or talk again. And so that's a really important factor. But it really is the ability to also reorganize itself, which is quite interesting. It's like forming those new neuroconnections throughout your life based on those experiences. And the neurons are like nerve cells in the brain. They compensate in some way to those experiences that are happening around us. Mm-hmm. And so your brain then adjusts to those activities. And therefore, you're starting to see new situations and new changes occurring as a result of that. So, for example, if I was going to start a new career as a pianist, right, and I'd never done that before, I would have to create new abilities to listen to sound and music and feel in a different way, as I would as a normal person that doesn't need those abilities. Or if I had some damage to my brain and I needed to recreate the ability to walk or talk again, so I'd have to practice that. So it's a consistency of rearranging and rewiring.
Yeah.
Cells. And when you look at some of the research that's been done out there, neuroplasticity is about the brain responding, reorganizing those connections. So it's always like you're rewiring. And the brain is such a dynamic organ, it can actually change itself over time.
That's incredible. So what kinds of things, like let's say, let's talk about an emotional impact. You have a bad day at work, or let's say maybe and you kind of feel bad about it, or you had a bad performance and you kind of down on yourself. Did something happen in my brain that's in there now that makes me feel like maybe, when we get those feelings of feeling down on ourselves, does neuroplasticity help to change that? Like what kind of steps can I do to create those neural pathways so I maybe look at it a little bit differently or find a way to learn from what happened?
Yeah, and at a really high level, there's lots of stuff going on in the background there. And we've been developing these neurons since birth. Mm-hmm. And so what we've experienced, what we've learned from others over time has created our sort of self-being, our being of self. And so to unwrap that, unwire that, and understand that can take quite a bit of time. But I think it is about reframing the narrative to yourself and creating some self-awareness. And if I share a bit of an experience I had, I went on this public speaking course. It was a 2-day course. It was really amazing because in that course, there was one thing I learned was a bit about how the brain functioned. And that's actually what sparked my curiosity into this field. And we were talking about the amygdala, and that's like the little prehistoric part of our brain that's the oldest part, really. And it was there to protect us from the dinosaurs and protect us from jumping off a cliff face and, all those things. It's the flight response.
Yes.
And so when I learned about that, and that was the part of my brain that was encouraging those fears, those things that were stopping me, like I went in there thinking, oh, I just want to learn about public speaking. But what I really learned was I actually have power to reframe the narrative that I'm having with myself, because I would get this, you're not really good enough to be speaking to Alex today on the podcast. No. Oh, you're not good enough to be talking about this topic. Well, what really is happening is protecting me from something bad happening. And so when you recognize that, what I did after that course was create self-awareness for me. And then off the back of that, every time I would have those thoughts, I would actually say thank you, but then I would change the thought. And so what I'm doing is I'm overriding it, and I'm building a new way of thinking and building new neurons that are becoming like muscles, stronger, louder, and better for me.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That. No, absolutely, 100%. So it sounds like, we first have to have self-awareness, right? And then we can reframe it. And I love what you said about thinking the thought, right? Because it's there, like our bodies are designed to survive. Every single part of us, just like when we get a little cut on our finger, there's not much we have to do, but the cells get to work and start building that scab, and then we heal. And, in a week or so, our finger is healed. So I think that's a great perspective to have. One of the things with WYRL is this concept of WYRL moments. I think, they're moments of fun, of action, of just courage. And I love what you just shared, because I think you did have a moment of courage and self-awareness. And the fact that you showed up, and I showed up to interview you too as well, even creating the podcast, like that's a WYRL moment for me. So yeah. I think we always have these thoughts, right? So what are some ideas or things going forward that we could share with people to create their own WYRL moments when these thoughts come?
Listening to this podcast is a really great step forward. I think exploring what's out there, talking to people, the moments are only created because we are doing it ourselves. But I think becoming aware and educating ourselves on the fact that we do have power over our experiences is the first step. Knowing that I could respond to my own thought of not being good enough and saying, well, actually I am. Is that really true? And challenging ourselves. So I think awareness is the key to listening to what's happening inside of ourselves and what we're actually saying to ourselves. So reframing that narrative would be a very good place to start, even if it's just with one thought.
Yes.
Challenging one thought per day. I think for me, what really helped over the years was reading books, listening to music, and when the internet came out, if you're old enough to remember when we didn't have it.
Yes, I
am. Google. Yeah. Go and Google some topics, learn something different, go for a walk, do the exercise. And one of the things I know we spoke about, Alex, which is really, really powerful, is the mindfulness.
Yes. Sitting and thinking, or just sitting. Yeah. Sometimes just sitting is what we need to clear our mind. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think I love the thought of welcoming it, because oftentimes we can have the negative thought and then we judge ourselves for having the negative thought. And then we feel bad about having the negative thought, as opposed to sitting and accepting it and saying, why is this happening? And having the mindset that you shared, the part of amygdala, is that that part of the brain? I got that right. I'm not. I think you got it right. Yeah. But just thinking and thanking ourselves, like, okay, you're trying to protect me now, but I'm actually very safe. Coming on this podcast, beginning this podcast, it's actually very safe. We're here to serve. We're here to reach other women that have the same experiences that we do, and also to share that, we're not alone. We have these thoughts, and how can we move forward together? And I think it starts with, as you said, awareness, mindfulness, and using those tools, taking a walk, quiet, listening to some music, affirmations. I think incantations, are also really good tools that are self-help tools that you can just kind of have 5 or 6, or 7 go-tos as some way to reframe your thinking. It really is true. Affirmations are quite powerful, because if you do them consistently enough, you're actually telling your brain that that's true. And so, it's about sort of building up those muscles. Yes. Those self-serving muscles and being able to self-regulate. Yeah. Yeah. I think self-regulation. Awesome. So is there anything else that you'd like to share today about just what we talked about, neuroplasticity, mindset, WYRL moments, a WYRL moment perhaps that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, well, I was looking forward to today, and I've actually got the red lips on,
I love
and
it.
really excited to be talking about a topic that I'm still learning so much about, and just to give others the confidence. You don't need to know everything about something to
Yeah.
go out and learn more and talk about it and have these conversations. I think for me, what I'm looking forward to is the next chapter in my life, and being able to put each foot forward with confidence.
Mhm.
And I know that it won't be easy every step of the way, but it is about just having that positive narrative and keep telling yourself that you got it.
Absolutely, 100%. So tell me about your experience putting on the red lip, because I know last week or the week before we talked, had some reservations. Today, you put it on, it looks like you feel great. So can you tell me a little bit of that journey, even over just 2 weeks?
I know. And 2 weeks ago, when I did put it on and we were talking, I did share with you that I felt uncomfortable wearing the red lips, because I am a bit of a plain Jane when it comes to, just not wearing a lot of lippy and things like that. But when I put it on, I don't know if I should share, but my partner walked in and said, "Look, you look like you've just put your mum's lipstick on," because obviously I didn't do it very well. So today I did it again, and I said to myself, "This actually looks really good. It's a nice color on you, and you're doing it to build confidence." There's something about putting it on as a piece of armor.
Yes.
I did feel like it gave me that little bit of step in that I needed.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you very much for joining us today. You've shared a lot of wonderful nuggets that I think people will really benefit from. And I look forward to the next time. So to all of you out there, thank you for joining us. This has been WYRL Beauty Red Lips Real Talk, talking about neuroplasticity, mindset, and wearing that red lip.